Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Today's reciters are Puja Mataji in Sanskrit and Pati Mataji in English from Canto 3, Chapter 22, verses 24 to 39. Jyoti Mataji, can you just scroll a little bit up and start at text number 24, please? Thank you. Puja Mataji, when you're ready, please start with invocation. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Start
Hare Krishna.
Charan. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Gnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Shri Gana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Shri Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Paramami Hari Priye Sanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Payevascha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I'll start with the Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Chapter 22, verse 24. Pratam duhitaram samrak sadraksaya gatavyathaha upaguyat cha bahubhyam otakantayon matiti sayaha.
Thus relieved of his responsibility by handing over his daughter to a suitable man, Swayambhuva Manu, his mind agitated by feelings of separation, embraced his affectionate daughter with both his arms.
Text 25. Asaknu vam tad viraham munjan vaspakalam muhuhu asinchad amavatseti netro der duhitu sikhaha.
The emperor was unable to bear the separation from of his daughter. Therefore, tears poured from his eyes again and again, drenching his daughter's head as he cried, "My dear mother, my dear daughter."
Text 26 to 27. Amantraya tam munivaram anugnata sahanuggaha pratasthe ratam aruya sabharaya swapuram nirpaha ubhyorisi kulyayaha saraswataya surodhasoho risinam upasantanam pasyan asrama sampadaha.
After asking and obtaining the great sage's permission to leave, the monarch mounted his chariot with his wife and started for his capital, followed by his retinue. Along the way, he saw the prosperity of the tranquil seer's beautiful hermitages on both the charming banks of the Saraswati, the river so agreeable to saintly persons.
Tam ayantam abhipretaya braham varatat prajapatim gita samstuti vaditraya pat pratyudyu paraha sitaha.
Overjoyed to know of his arrival, his subjects came forth from Brahmavarta to greet their returning lord with songs, prayers, and musical instruments.
Verse 29 to 30. Barhispati namapuri sarva sampat samanvita Jnapatan yatra romani yagnesyagnam vidunvataha kusaha kasastam evasan sasvadairita rachasaha rasayo yai parabhavya yagna gnanam yagnam ijire.
The city of Barismati, rich in all kinds of wealth, was so cold because Lord Vishnu's hair dropped there from his body when he manifested himself as Lord Boar. As he shook his body, his very hair fell and turned into blades of evergreen kusa grass and kasa, another kind of grass used for mats, by means of which the sages worshipped Lord Vishnu after defeating the demons who had interfered with the performance of their sacrifices.
Verse 31. Kusaka samayam barhair astraya bhagwan manu ayajad yagna purusham labda sthanan yato bhuvanam.
Manu spread a seat of kusas and kasas and worshipped the Lord, the personality of Godhead, by whose grace he had obtained the rule of the territorial globe.
Verse 32. Barhismatim nama vibhu yam nirvishya samasvasat tasyam pravisto bhavanam tapatraya vinasanam.
Having entered the city of Barismati, in which he had previously lived, Manu entered his palace, which was filled with an atmosphere that eradicated the three miseries of material existence.
Verse 33. Sabharyaha saprajaha kaman bhuje nyavirodhataha sangyana satkirtiha sastri bhai suragya kayaha pratyus yusesva anubadhena rada sranava hareha katha.
Emperor Swayambhuva Manu enjoyed life with his wife and subjects and fulfilled his desires without being disturbed by unwanted principles contrary to the process of religion. Celestial musicians and their wives sang in chorus about the pure reputation of the emperor, and early in the morning, every day, he used to listen to the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a loving heart.
Verse 34. Nishnatam yogamayasu munin swayam bhuvam manum yad abharam sayaitum bhoga na sekur bhagavata param.
Thus, Swayambhuva Manu was a saintly king. Although absorbed in material happiness, he was not dragged to the lowest grade of life, for he always enjoyed his material happiness in a Krishna conscious atmosphere.
Verse 35. Ayata yamastasyam yamasvantara panaha Shunvato dhyayato Vishnoha Kurvato Bruvata Katahaha.
Consequently, although his duration of life gradually came to an end, his long life, consisting of a Manvantara era, was not spent in vain, since he ever engaged in hearing, contemplating, writing down, and chanting the pastimes of the Lord.
Verse 36. स एवं स्वन्तरं निन्ये युगनम् एका सप्ततिं वासुदेवप्रसङ्गेन परिभूता गतित्रयाः.
He passed his time, which lasted 71 cycles of the 4 ages, 71 times 4,320,000 years, always thinking of Vasudev and always engaged in matters regarding Vasudev. Thus, he transcended the 3 destinations.
Verse 37. Sariramana divya Vayaseye chamanusaha Bhautikascha katham klesa Vadhante hari samshrayanam.
Therefore, O Vidura, how can persons completely under the shelter of Lord Krishna in devotional service be put into miseries pertaining to the body, the mind, the nature, and other men and living creatures?
Verse 38. Yaprasto munibi praha dharmanan vidan chuban Nranam varnas shramananam cha sarva bhuta hita sada.
In reply to questions asked by certain sages, he, Swayambhava Manu, out of compassion for all living entities, taught the diverse sacred duties of men in general and the different varnas and ashramas.
Verse 39. Etatta adirajasya rajasya manocharitam adbhutam vranitam vrananyas ya tad apatyodayam srunu.
I have spoken to you of the wonderful character of Swayambhava Manu, the original king whose reputation is worthy of description. Please hear as I speak of the flourishing of his daughter Devahuti. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone. So hope you're all doing well. And that's a beautiful recitation by Puja Mataji and Pati Mataji. Thank you so much. I also noticed that Puja Mataji, you had done the Mangalacharan, so we will do a short Mangalacharan. So if you can just, we'll do the invocation first. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So today we continue with chapter 22, the marriage of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. And today we are going to be talking of topics which are which continue. There is a lot of social commentary on that. And as we go through today's discussion, let's really reflect on what our value systems are, and we'll touch upon this in a little bit. So today, because of the nature of the, so we'll do 23 to 27. Usually we read all of them and then, then I share my reflections, but this time we are just going to, break it so that we can have, so that we can look at each of these purports that Prabhupada has given, like with attention. So, we finished last where we are today with respect to to this particular chapter. So after having unmistakably known the decision of the queen, as well as that of Devahuti, the emperor most gladly gave his daughter to the sage, whose host of virtues was equaled by hers. And you can see this, both in this chapter and the previous chapter, we can see that there is a very strong linkage to Vedic principles of marriage, of the institution of marriage, the role of the father, the daughter, the bridegroom, and we will continue in that. So in this, there are a few things that that we just is worth examining. One is unmistakably known the decision. So there is absolutely no scope for doubt. And typically, when we look at taking a decision on marriage, it's a very very important decision, and it's very important that we do it the right way. So here, like Emperor as the father, he has got this. He knows unmistakably what the decision of the queen, his wife, is, the mother, and also the daughter. And then that's what gives him the confidence and the trust that he can give his daughter to the sage. And again, there is another reference that host of virtues are equal by hers. So again, here the key thing is when Kardama Muni asked that he would like a partner with a like disposition. So it's not so much from a material wealth perspective; it's more from a spiritual and virtues perspective. So that's where we were. And now we move on to text 23. So I'm going to read in Sanskrit, and I'll invite volunteers to read in English. Shatarupa Maharagi Paribarhan Mahadhanan Dampatyo Paryadat Pritya Bhushavasa Parichadan. So that is, who would like to read the translation and the purport for this verse?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can I try?
Yes, of course,
please?
Indira Mataji, please go ahead.
Translation. Empress Satarupa lovingly gave most valuable presents suitable for the occasion, such as jewelry, clothes, and household articles, in dowry to the bride and the bridegroom. Purport. This custom of giving one's daughter in charity with a dowry is still current in India. The gifts are given according to the position of the father of the bride. Paribaraham Mahadannan means the dowry which must be awarded to the bridegroom at the time of marriage. Here, Mahadannan means great valuable gifts befitting the dowry of an empress. The words Bhushavasa, Parichadan. Is that correct, Prabhuji? Sorry, my Sanskrit is not good. Also appear here. Bhusha means ornaments, Vasa means clothing, and Parichadan means various household articles. All things befitting the marriage ceremony of the emperor's daughter were awarded to Kardama Muni, who was until now observing celibacy as the brahmachari. The bride, Devahuti, was very richly dressed with ornaments and clothing. In this way, Kardamana Muni was married with full opulence to a qualified wife and was endowed with the necessary paraphernalia for household life. In the Vedic way of marriage, such as dowry is still given to the bridegroom by the father of the bride. Even in the poverty-stricken India, there are marriages where hundreds and thousands of rupees are spent for a dowry. The dowry system is not illegal, as some has tried to prove. The dowry is a gift given to the daughter by the father to show goodwill, and it is compulsory. In rare cases where the father is completely unable to give dowry, it is enjoined that he must at least give a fruit and a flower. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, God can also be pleased even by a fruit and a flower. When there is financial inability and no questions of accumulating a dowry by another means, one can give a fruit and a flower for the satisfaction of the bridegroom. Hare Krishna, is that finished, Prabhuji?
Yes, it's finished. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So it's a bit of a long purport. I think what we'll do is we'll quickly look at some other key messages that's coming out here. So in this, Empress Satarupa gives a lot of valuable presents and example which are befitting their position as as the emperor and empress. And there are some examples of what is being given, which is jewelry, clothes, and articles. And let's look at what Prabhupada says. And so, from a Vedic principle perspective, so it's what's mentioned is that the gifts are given according to the position of the father of the bride. So we do know that there is this, this dowry system in India. It's done in many parts of India, although in in some regions it's even more prominent than some of the others. So this is where like when there is a marriage proposal that is being formalized, then the daughter's father, I mean the bride's father, gives dowry, which can be anything that's materially, and anything that's that he considers valuable. So so here Prabhupada talks about the Vedic principles of what it means. And it's very interesting to see because we are seeing this very unique partnership, I mean marriage that's going to come. Yes, there is Kardama Muni, who is a brahmachari. He doesn't have much material positions, and then he's marrying Devahuti, who's a princess, and she's very richly dressed. So if you can just like think of how this in our mind's eye, how this particular arrangement is coming about. So in today's world, we keep thinking about like relationships and marriage as being equal, and that equal comes more from a material perspective. So you can have like someone who's a head of a business house marrying like their daughter to head of a to the son of like head of another business house, and that way you're just like trying to increase like the total material wealth. And we see that there is so much of aspect around like the economic aspect and the power in today's world when we look at partnerships, when we look at marriages. But here we know that it's purely based on virtues. So you can see that there is a very sharp contrast because we have Kardama Muni, who is a brahmachari who shuns material wealth, and he's marrying Devahuti. So something to just reflect on. And this is also because you need to have the necessary paraphernalia for household life. So many of us, when we go for marriages and when we take presents, when we take gifts, many of us take gifts that allow the bride and the groom to set up a new home. And because they do need that right at the start. I mean, right from like a refrigerator to like a kitchen to utensils, because they are going to start their own life and like together. So so this is how the Empress is giving a lot of paraphernalia for life. So Prabhupada does say here that the dowry system in itself is not illegal, and but we do know that there is a lot of association of evil things with the dowry system, and that's only because there is an expectation that like a father should be giving a lot of dowry, irrespective of what their material financial situation is. And because the father loves the daughter and they want to really do the right things by the daughter, they also want to ensure that they have a social standing and that they live up to. So they go a bit out of their way to give something to their to the bridegroom, and that leads potentially to a lot of social evils. And we have also seen that look at the caste system itself. So Krishna has created the caste system so that there is a proper structure and organizing of society. And there's nothing illegal about caste, but then the way the caste system has been abused by by many people. And today we see that there are these lots of unjust, like and unfair things that are done, with respect to caste, and that's similar in case of dowry as well. So here what Prabhupada says is that a Lord can also be pleased even by a fruit and a flower. So and so there is no need for a father to give beyond their his means. So he can always give whatever is as per his capacity. But he gives that out of pure love. So today's world has changed a lot, and when we let's look at what the Vedic principles say, and how that has been misconstrued in Kali Yuga, and how that has led to a lot of uh, inaccurate assessments of what are principles which were done and which had no problems at all, and everybody was living in harmony when this dowry system was. So something for us to reflect on. And we'll continue with that reflection as we look at more social topics that comes in the subsequent verses. Text 24. Pratam duhitaram samrat sadrishaya gatavyatah upagohya cha bahubhyam kanthyon. So would somebody like to read the translation and the purport?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can I read, please?
Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Translation. Thus relieved of his responsibility by handing over his daughter to a suitable man, Swayambhu Manu, his mind agitated by feelings of separation, embraced his affectionate daughter with both his arms. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. A father always remains in anxiety until he can hand over his grown-up daughter to a suitable boy. A father and mother's responsibility for children continues until they marry them to suitable spouses. When the father is able to perform that duty, he is relieved of his responsibility.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So this is many of us may have gone through this, like emotion when we are, handing our daughter to a suitable man, and Swayambhuva Manu is no different. So he could be the greatest emperor of his time, but is also a father, and as a father, he has got this very he's agitated by feelings of separation at the same time, being relieved of the responsibility of handing over his daughter. So here there are two, like emotions that are in, that are at play. One is his sense of responsibility. So as a father, we take responsibility for the well-being of our children. And in case of a daughter, that responsibility, does get handed over, to the suitable man when, like the daughter gets married. And we do know, and many of us may have seen, like movies where, the daughter and the father, in a separation during marriages, is dramatized. And it speaks of this very beautiful relationship with them, because between a father and a daughter. And so Swayambhuva, cannot help but embrace his daughter, because now he knows that Devahuti, who's so dear to him, is and who's been living, in the palace, like with a lot of opulence and also a lot of virtues, like will now, live with Kardama Muni. So it's a very strange situation. And here I do want to touch a little bit upon the aspect of responsibility. So that is responsibility is one of the qualities, and one of the which may not necessarily be seen in the same way depending on the way a generation that you were born in. So there has been a study that was done, a research that was done by the John Hopkins University. And what they had done is they had done a lot of work on the value systems, and really what are the values that guide us in making our right decisions in our behaviors, etc. So they touched upon the generational aspect. So for example, those who were born between 1946 to like 1964, if I remember correct. So they belonged to a Gen Gen X, I believe, and then there was a Gen Y, then there was a Gen Z. So Gen X, those who were born at this point of time, they worked hard, and they really had a very strong sense of responsibility, and values that were very, very important to them was one of hard work, commitment, perseverance, sacrifice, dignity, honor. So these things were very, very important, for them. And as we look at, and it was a lot more of hard work, and they were not really focused so much on enjoyment. Then when you look at, like those who were born from 1964 to 1980, so they shared a lot of the values, but then of hard work, but then they also felt that they need to enjoy as well, so that they can take the hard work to the next level. And then from 1980 to probably 2000 or something, then we had people who were born in that particular generation are are not only working hard, and and they not only want to enjoy, but then they're also very smart, generally very smart. And that could also coincide with the advent of technology, where we all has started becoming a lot more efficient in many ways in our lives. And then we, from the 2000 onwards till 2010. So now this generation is very, very interesting, because they have come back to that sense of responsibility, but then to them it's more important to they don't really respect authority as much as what you would have a previous generation do. And that makes some of us who belong to that generation, like older generations, to say, what, the youngsters of today are very lazy. They are very they don't really, like, you can't really trust them to do anything. So but then we don't really understand, it's all because of this value systems that's really developed very differently, like depending on when you were born. And there is, of course, a social economic aspect as well, depending on like what's really the status of your family. So if you ask, say, a youngster about responsibility, so it may not feel as much important, but for Swayambhuva Manu, and for some of us who are really born, that sense of responsibility is very, very important. And we will and it all really depends on what the value systems are. So as we go to the rest of the discussions, we're also going to be touching upon some topics, and please to remember what we said about the value systems, because that's what shapes us, and that's what also guides us in having perceptions about the information that we receive. So let's move on to text 25. So Ashaknovam stadvigharam munjan bashpakalamuhu asinchadam bhavatseti netrodair duhitoshikah. Could we have a volunteer?
Sure. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Pushpa Mataji.
Translation. The emperor was unable to bear the separation of his daughter. Therefore, tears poured from his eyes again and again, drenching his daughter's head as he cried, "My dear mother, my dear daughter." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The word Amba is significant. A father sometimes addresses his daughter in affection as mother, and sometimes as my darling. The feeling of separation occurs because until the daughter is married, she remains the daughter of the father. But after her marriage, she is no longer claimed as the daughter in the family. She must go to the husband's house, for after marriage she becomes the property of the husband. According to Manu Samhita, a woman is never independent. She must remain the property of the father while she is not married, and she must remain the property of the husband until she is elderly and has grown up children of her own. In old age, when the husband has taken sannyas and left home, she remains the property of the sons. A woman is always dependent either upon the father, husband, or elderly sons. That will be exhibited in the life of Devahuti. Devahuti's father handed over responsibility for her to the husband Kardama Muni, and in the same way, Kardama Muni also left home, giving the responsibility to his son Kapil Dev. This narration will describe these events one after another. Haribol.
Haribol, thank you so much, Mataji. So let's move on to trying to understand a little bit here. So this particular verse is very, very emotional. So we can see that Swayambhuva Manu is unable to bear the separation. So finally, his emotion at the feeling of separation is much more than the relief that he gets from a sense of handing over the responsibility to Kardama Muni. So, and he's expressing this in a very openly emotional way, and he calls his daughter, my dear mother and my dear daughter. So, and Prabhupada says here that when you that a father could like address his daughter as Amma or mother, and also my darling, because she's because she's very, very dear to him. And the feeling of separation also brings in like a something else. So this particular verse essentially looks at two things. One is the the emotions, the very, very strong and intense emotions like between a father and a daughter. And the second one is like what is really the status of the position of a woman now like during her life, or in terms of who's responsible for her. So we will try to look at both of these a bit separately, and of course we will then link it up together. So the first one around the father and the daughter's feelings. So you can see that we have a lot of attachment to our dear ones. So we may feel a lot of love towards our parents. Usually they are the first recipients of our love in this world, because we depend so much on them. And if you recall your early days, your father would probably hold your hand, and then like take you on a walk by the park. Your mother would cuddle you, put you to sleep. And so your propensity to love is first directed towards your parents, because they are the first relationships that you build. And then if you have siblings at home, then whether it's a brother or a sister, then you start developing an affectionate relationship with them. So although I do have a sister who's younger to me, and we love each other as only a brother and a sister can. But I do remember that we have like fought quite a lot. And my parents tell me, although I have probably forgotten this, that normally when you're the eldest sibling, then you're normally a little bit more like peaceful. And apparently my sister was very, very when she was young, she was very like naughty, and then she would scratch me, and then I'll have these the scratch marks on my hand. And then my parents would reprimand my sister. So now we of course have a laugh about it, but like it really goes on to say that we develop these relationships. So it normally begins in the home, and then it starts becoming in school, when we start like interacting with students, and we make some dear friends. And usually those friendships remain for life, because they know the real you. So, I mean, I still have like, I'm still in touch with like 2 or 3 of my, school friends, and they know me so well, and they can preempt what I can think because they have seen me when I was very, very young. They have seen me when I haven't had much, like walls, put, because, as we grow up, we start showing a particular person of ourselves, to the world, which may not necessarily be a true self. So then, so it could be friends, or then it could be then as you grow, then it could be university mates, and then your work colleagues when you start, like working, and then of course, marriage and children, and so on. So you realize that for us to really um, spend our journey in this particular lifetime as this human being, as Madan or whoever it is, we realize that it's very, very important for us to have those relationships. And what Krishna has done is has allowed us to invest in those relationships, because he knows that we have a propensity to love, because that's Krishna's nature. Krishna's nature is propensity to love, and that's why we also have that propensity to love. Now the question is, where do we repose that propensity? Do we repose it purely on these relationships that we just spoke about, or is it really, or should we really invest our love somewhere else, or propensity to love? And it's an interesting question, because a lot of the world really runs on love, and love can mean different things. It can mean like love between father and daughter, mother and child, husband and wife, and so on and so forth. So these are, at the end of the day, however exalted they are, how much ever we like our culture and tradition speaks about this love, but then we do know that they're all temporary, because because love can mean, the other side of love can also be like conflict. So you can also, while you can actually feel a lot of, like love or affection for someone, it doesn't take too long sometimes to, for that to completely change. And we do know lots of examples where, there are conflicts between parents and children, there are conflicts between siblings, like maybe over property matters, etc. So that's when you really see some of the worst of human nature. So so there is this aspect where you love someone, and there is also this aspect where you can't stand someone, because like there is so much of conflict that's going on. And that's because these relationships are very, very sporadic, and they are very, very temporary, and they are very material. So uh, so the question is, where do we really repose that propensity to love? So the only way, from a devotee perspective, how we would view this is that we are all part and parcel of Krishna, and so if we can direct our relationship, our propensity to love to Krishna, and then see all the other relationships that we have really created in that particular light, then it can make those relationships a lot more fulfilling, and you'd also have like less probability of conflict that could come in. So so that's really the first part of what this verse really speaks about. The first one is about this intense feeling that we have as a relationship between, in this case, a father and a daughter, but we can also like expand that to other relationships that we have. And it's important to recognize that these are temporary relationships, and the more you have that affection, the more you show that, the more it pulls you, like to this particular into this material world. And we have a very good example of Bharat Maharaj, where he was the one of the most exalted devotees of the Lord. However, he reposed his affection to the little doe, and that meant that it distracted him from from his steadfastness, devotional service to Vasudev, and so he took birth as a deer. Although he did remember everything, so that because it was just a way for him to really understand, that any love, any affection that you have in this particular world would be temporary. And it's also temporary because not everybody is going to stay forever, because we would so this year was very particularly painful for my wife, and because she lost her mother. And it's not very easy to lose a loved one. And sometimes we do say that time is the best healer, but then we also recognize that we are souls. We are not this body. However, when you really look at when you go through that experience yourself, you it's very, very difficult. And even after a few months, I find that she's still like struggling to really come to terms. And because she knows that this feeling of separation is really very, very final. Although we do know in our hearts that like she's a soul, she's probably gone closer to Krishna, but but that feeling of separation still remains. However, if we see this from the perspective that like she's not really died, because her still soul lives on, and that can change our mood, and it can also help us to come back like to a normal thinking, and getting on with our lives. So the second part in this particular verse is around around like the role of a woman. And so what Prabhupada says here is that a woman is a property of the father, I mean of the family. And then when she goes to the husband's house, she becomes the property of the husband. And then she must and then she later on, then she becomes a property of a son. So it's a very interesting, like it's the word property could be very could be looked at it in a different ways. And again, if you were to look at things from a devotee perspective, if you recall, in the Ishopanishad, Krishna says that he's a proprietor and of everything in this material universe, which means that none of us are really, we are all dependent on him, and we are not really property. Finally, it's really Krishna who owns everybody. So how can we just we say here that a woman becomes is a property of the family, then she becomes a property of the husband, and then the sons. So one way of looking at this could be that when we think of property, when we think of something which is very valuable, let's think of property as something which is very valuable, which is very dear to you. And because in the material world, that's how you look at property. So if you look at a house, for example, where you do so many, I mean, because that's a place where you spend like most of your time, apart from the workplace, of course. And what you really try to do is, you try to make the house very, very comfortable, and then you take very good care of it. And you paint it a few times, and you do a lot of decorations. And then when you're away for like 2 or 3 weeks, then you ensure that it's all locked up and secure, etc. So you find that you take a lot of good care of the house. And so one way of looking at this would be a property is something which is very dear to you. It's something that's valuable to you, and hence you will take good care of it. So that's one way of looking at it. However, another way of looking at it, as I mentioned, as a devotee, is that think of all of us as being part and parcel of Krishna. And when we do that, then nobody is really a property. And hence, that also coming to the earlier discussion about the relationships. And if we see Krishna as the ultimate owner, and if we see Krishna, if we see that our ultimate relationship is with Krishna and to please him, then we can anchor all our activities, all our actions, all our behaviors towards satisfying Krishna. So that's on text 25, and we will quickly move on to text 26 and 27 now. आमन्त्यथं मुनिरवम् अनुज्ञात सहानुगः प्रतस्थेरथमारुह्य सभार्य स्वपुरं नृपः उभयोऋषिर्कुल्याय Sarasvatya Surodasau Rishinamupashantanam Pashyannashrama Sampadaha. So could we have someone read the last two verses, the translation, the purport?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, can I read?
Yes, Hitesh Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. After asking and obtaining the great sage's permission to leave, the monarch mounted his chariot with his wife and started for his capital, followed by his retinue. Along the way, he saw the property of the tranquil steers, beautiful hermitages on both the charming banks of Saraswati River, the river so agreeable to saintly persons. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. As cities are constructed in the modern age with great engineering and architectural craftsmanship, so in the days gone by there were neighborhoods called Rishikulas, where great saintly persons resided. In India, there are still many magnificent places for spiritual understanding. There are many rishis and saintly persons living in nice cottages on the banks of the Ganges and Yamunas for purposes of spiritual cultivation. While passing through Rishi Kulas, the king and his party were very much satisfied with the beauty of the cottages and hermitages. It is stated here, Pashyana Ashrama Sampadaha, the great sages had no skyscrapers, but the hermitages were so beautiful that the king was very much pleased at the sight. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Many years ago, I had the opportunity to go to a place called Rishikesh, and then from there on to Prayag. So we decided to drive. And as we crossed, like as we were moving from, I mean, it was Delhi first, and then we moved towards Haridwar. It was absolutely mesmerizing to really, see the beautiful, like landscape, like it's like mountain roads, and then we had the mighty Ganges, like flowing, by the side, by a side. So it was a beautiful sight, and then we could also see that a lot of their there were ashrams, which were on the banks of the river. So we were fortunate enough to live in one of the ashrams, and that ashram, like was very, very, it was really beautiful. It may not have all the amenities that we probably expect, like in a five-star hotel, but then that more than compensated, for the entire spiritual atmosphere, for the opportunity to, like be very close to nature, and also the opportunity to really wake up in the morning, and then the first thing you do is to really take a dip in the Ganges, in the refreshing like water. So that felt so good. And when we used to wake up in the mornings, and we would just like look out of the window, and then on the other side, you have these mountains, and then you'll have the clouds that are like gently covering the mountains, and then you can hear the gush of the of the Ganges. So and why do we find? I was just thinking, why do we find those places so beautiful? And one reflection that I do have is that because they're so rich in spiritual potency, because there is everyone out there, all the hermits, all these sages who live there, everybody, they come for a particular purpose. They're not coming because they want to acquire wealth, etc. All of them are coming because they want to really spend some austerities. They want to do something, to please Krishna, or the various demigods that they worship. So and that's something that like Swayambhuva, Manu Maharaj also had. So whenever you're crossing the Rishikul, so you have like these cities, and in between the cities you have these oasis of nature, and within the oasis of nature, sometimes you also find communities where which come together for the purpose of spiritual cultivation. Many years ago, when I was working in Sweden, there were a few devotee friends, and there were four of us who decided to go to Hare Krishna community in Amvik, which is about 60 kilometers from Stockholm. And we had gone there for Gaura Purnima. So and I was quite new to ISKCON. I was just like trying to understand a little bit more about the practices, and so it was a bit of a trek because we had to take a bus, and I mean we had to take a train, and then it was not exactly in a place which is very accessible, so we had to take a cab or something. And when we reached, we were quite tired, and then when we came to the temple, um I don't know what really happened, because we just came to the temple, and then we saw the Panchatattva, and that was the first time I really saw the Panchatattva, and it was so amazing. It was an incredible experience, like personally for me. And then we were, of course, shown our place to stay, etc. And then when we woke up in the morning, we that's when I saw how big it was. It was this probably around 300 families, who all live, like within maybe a half a mile or something. So they have, the Goshala. There are many things that are going on. So they continue to do their, material duties. They have some, like jobs that they go to, but then they have all come, with the intention to please Krishna. So we had some we met up with some very interesting devotees. In fact, there was one that we saw. He was a painter, and we saw in the temple there was this huge like painting, which had the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, and it was so magnificent. And we were so then we got speaking to him, and then he said, "Okay, I do this, and I do this because this is my way to please Krishna. So I don't charge for this. But what I do is, since I'm a painter, what I do is like I perfected the art of painting birds on stones, and apparently that that was quite popular. So he said that like every once in a while, he makes these, he gets these very unique stones, and then he paints lots of birds. And then we said we must come and see you, like in your studio. So we saw his studio, and it was absolutely amazing. So Amik was a place where everybody had come together for the purpose of spiritual cultivation, and just like as Swayambhuva, Manu and his party were very much satisfied with the beauty of the cottages and hermitages. We felt the same. Like all of us who were there, we felt the same, because there's so much of spiritual potency. Everyone was chanting. Everyone was doing devotional service. It's like how you come to the manor. The moment you come to the manor, things change completely. So it's as if you're in the spiritual oasis, and you can forget about like what's happening. All your worries, all your anxieties really go away. So yeah, so that's really that's really what Swayambhuva, Manu may have felt at that point of time. So if I were to just do a quick recap, I know we discussed quite a number of topics. So so this is just a quick recap is that we so the emperor and his queen offers their daughter Kadama Muni to no, I mean Devahuti to Kadama Muni, and so we begin with having a lot of gifts that are exchanged, and then we see the father feeling this relief at sharing at giving his responsibility of his daughter to Kardama Muni, but there is also a feeling of separation, and he expresses that very openly. And that reminds us of what the role of relationships and affection and love, and how in the end the only eternal relationship is with Krishna. So it's important for us to really strengthen that particular relationship, and also see that in the various other relationships that we have around us. And then we also looked at the role of women and how she becomes a property of the she's born as a property of the family, and then of the husband, and then of the son. However, we can also look at it from the point of view that we all are properties of Krishna, and if we have a property, then it's important that we like hold it very dearly and we take good care of it. And then we towards the end we saw how a place of spiritual civilization can create a lot of joy, can create a lot of resonance, with everyone. So we end there, and I'll pause here and like invite any questions, any reflections.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Hitesh Prabhu.
Just kind of a reflection or a observation or a thought is it's a great responsibility when you say when you have a property. I mean, in terms of Prabhupada writing, is the property of the son or the father or the husband. It's a great responsibility, not just materially, but also spiritually. That obviously you want the best outcome. For example, we're all on this journey, and if we will have children, or we would want our children to lean or go towards Krishna consciousness, because and that's kind of a great responsibility. That's just kind of a reflection. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. And I think you linked it up so beautifully, because we spoke about responsibility, we spoke about value systems. And here I think it's really about really, like providing the right, looking property as well. The best gift we can give to children is if we can give them the values of Krishna consciousness, because then we know that that's going to really stay with them. So it's not about giving them anything else. But yeah, that's a beautiful reflection. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? What resonated with you today?
Hare Krishna again.
Hare Krishna.
Just an addition. It's kind of love, because it's love for Krishna. We are doing all these things, or we try to imbibe that. And again, when you have mother, daughter, father, son, it's about love, and because of your love, you want the best for them. And Krishna consciousness is the best, obviously. So again, it's that not just responsibility, but it's that love that pushes you to want to imbibe such values in them. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, definitely. It is love, because the human heart. The soul has got the propensity to love. Just like as it's Satchitananda. So, and those are the qualities of Krishna. And if they are the qualities of Krishna, we are part and parcel of Krishna. So we also have those qualities. Now the question is, uh, how do you want to, like focus your love on? So keeping Krishna at the center, and then having other like relationships as a satellite, so to speak, can be more powerful than keeping say a material relationship as being central, and then revolving your entire like world around that, because that could lead to a lot of difficulties, partly because it's temporary, it's not really permanent. So it's almost like looking at the sun and the solar system. So sun is at the center of the solar system, and then the earth and everything, all the planets like move around it. But if we start, moving around the earth, and then we forget the sun, for example, then who's really the life-giving energy, who's really governing all the everything about the solar system, then that's not that's still, yes, you are directing your love towards someone, but then it's not really going to stay for long. So yeah. So some very beautiful concepts today around the importance of love, relationships, property, affection,
Hare Krishna,
responsibility.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I've got a question. You divided all the people born in certain era of the age time.
Yeah.
Now, people born after year 2000 and onwards, especially the female gender, how do you explain to them that there are a property when Prabhupada has said in the purport that they're property of the father or the husband or the sons, because they're not going to, I've come across this so many times that they're saying that they're not a property, they are a person. You have to respect us. We don't belong to anybody, and how do you sort of like explain or make them understand that the property word is indifferent to the way they see it?
I think that's a very, very good question. So, and there is no easy answer to this, Madhaji. So clearly, we have to be very sensitive about what is really the what is really the younger generation really what's important to them, and that's where I will touch upon something that I had shared right at the start, which is the importance of value systems, because we may have a value system that may not necessarily be the same as the value system of of a young daughter, for example. So how do we really communicate something like this? So um, one way of looking at it is, as I mentioned, if you think of property not as property itself, but to really look at property as something that, as something that we find valuable, and so that's why we'll take very good care of it, and will protect it. So it's if we can use the word property to really direct the thinking towards that, like if it's a home, I mean, I took the example of a home. So will you take good care of your home? Yes. I mean, so in a similar way, you will not you will take very, very good care of like of the daughter. The other thing to also keep in mind is that if you were to look at Vedic principles, because over the last like a few chapters, we have at least a couple of chapters, we have been hearing a lot about what the Vedic principles say, and there is there is a Shruti and there is a Smriti aspect of it. The Shruti are those those eternal truths that can't really change. But the Smriti are essentially based on the time, place, circumstances, because Prabhupada also says that sometimes like what I write may also have to we also have to consider the time, place, circumstance, which is really the context. And so you'll have to keep both in mind. And in this case, the yes, so you'll keep the principle the same, that we need to protect like our daughter. We need someone to take very, very good care of her. But then the way you explain that will be to use like time, place, circumstance. So do it in a manner that is more the young daughter may be more open to listening to. Yes, because in today's world, with the it's age of feminism, so the power of women. So it's going to be very difficult to say property. You'll probably have to use some different words,
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah,
definitely. And it's
yeah,
like it also says it's equal rights now. There's no
exactly.
like male and female sort of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed, indeed, it's yeah, it's very true. So so while we appreciate these principles, and we also have to acknowledge that when we are talking to someone, we need to really respect what value system they come from. And then that can be your daughter, that can be your son. But then, when we know that their thinking could be slightly different, then we'll have to speak their language rather than speak a language which will alienate them.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So, if there are no more questions, Shri Kushari Mataji, can I invite you to do the final prayers?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for the nice class. Okay, let's all put our hands together. Let's pray very sincerely. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you,
so
Madan
much.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Madan.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Wonderful
Krishna.
class.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.